Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new episode of Gaming in the Wild, a video games podcast about games from the artistic, creative side of the tracks, from indie to AAA. My name's John, I'm your host. I'm recording out in Reykjavik, Iceland on the 8th of July 2026. It is a hazy night, can't see much, kind of cloudy. We've not been in the heatwave here, we've escaped the heatwave. If you are stuck in one, then sorry about it. It's kind of funny to think that when I was a kid, everyone used to go on holidays to Spain to be in the sun, or to equatorial countries or Mediterranean countries, and now it would seem more like they would probably go to Greenland, or right here in Iceland to go and sit by a big block of ice while they are still there. It's been an interesting couple of weeks since the last podcast. The World Cup has happened. Being a British person, I am kind of into football. I support Arsenal. And I have followed England since I was a little kid, so I always look forward to the World Cup coming around. For a few reasons, actually. You know, I love the game of football. I love watching interlocking tactics. I love watching the individual drama, the strategic changes, the arcs of players, the arcs of managers, the arcs of clubs. And then when it comes to the World Cup, you get a whole other ball game. You get the cultures of countries from around the world coming together, joyfully marching towards stadiums, playing, screaming, waving their flags, and the heartbreak and the ecstasy of it all. It's just been an incredible spectacle. The fact that it's in the States has come with a whole lot of baggage and trouble because it is, Trump's America right now, and to some degree Trump's World Cup. But that also means that the stadiums are just absolutely huge. Some of the stadiums that I've seen in this World Cup, like the Seattle Stadium with a view of the city, and in Mexico too, the Azteca Stadium in Mexico, an iconic stadium. It has felt like a very large-scale World Cup, and I think perhaps that is what has drawn so many people into it. It's been a really, really good one. England are still in. I'm still supporting them, and it's going to be a fun ride to the finish. But as for what's going to be in this episode, I'm going to talk about some games. I've been playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I've been playing Monster Hunter Stories 3. I have played and completed Vampire Crawlers, and I've been playing a little bit of Cobalt Core as well. So I've got some games to talk about, but there is actually a tie-in with the World Cup chat because, on this podcast and YouTube channel, I occasionally put together game giveaways for new patrons. I sometimes talk to a solo developer that I've interviewed or someone that I've interacted with on social media, and I say, I would love to do a giveaway of your game, which will help your game by getting it on the show, and will help me by helping get people into Patreon and keep it all ticking from my end as well. And it's usually just one game at a time. Occasionally I'll do a little round, see if I can pull a few together. But I had a good email the other day from Panic, the publisher who made Playdate, the beautiful little handheld console with a crank, and who publish a whole lot of good games as well. They actually publish some really interesting and artistic indie games, which is obviously in tune with Gaming in the Wild. And we're doing a little Panic giveaway here on the channel. They have given me 10 Steam codes each for Blippo Plus, which is a piece of theatre in the shape of a game. It's a game in which you channel hop through the TV stations of an alien planet. And it has a very interesting story. It's very minimal gameplay, but an interesting story where you as the watcher come to play a role. Let's just say that. But the channels that you watch are like alien nature documentaries, alien talk shows, and it's like a very funny take on Earth culture, sort of transposed to an alien futurist society, and you just channel surf. They've given me 10 copies of that one. They've given me 10 copies of Time Flies, a very, very funny little game where you play as a fly that has 60 seconds to live. You have to fly around a house, and there are things that you can interact with, like a grandfather clock, a record player, a guitar, sleeping people in beds, leftover food on the counter, and you only have so much time to do it. You can find ways to extend your life just a little bit, and the whole game is a process of exploring the house, dying a lot of times, and trying to fulfill the wishes, all of the wishes that a fly could have in their tiny 60-second life. It's existential, it's funny, it's a really good little game. So I have 10 codes for Time Flies to give away as well. And then perhaps the most well-known game of the three is the soccer game, is Despelote. It is a football game about a childhood experience of the World Cup. It is autobiographical, it is beautiful, You'll get to kick a ball around in first person. You'll get to watch World Cup games happening. You'll get to see the culture of, I think it's Uruguay, really coming to life around a World Cup run. And it's very, very much in tune with the World Cup times that we're living through right now. And so thank you very much to Panic for giving me those codes. And if you would like to claim one, there are 30 codes. You can join patreon.com/gaminginthewild, support this podcast for $3 a month. It is the $3 or euros or pounds tier that will get free game codes. If you are an existing patron and you would like a code, just upgrade your tier by one level, and I will be in touch about your codes. And if you are a new patron, then just sign up over there. I will be in touch to say thank you and to get your code to you. You will also get access to, I think, 22 now bonus episodes. Those are patron-only episodes about off-topic things where I talk about the rest of the world outside of games. So if that sounds interesting to you, then you can get those episodes, an invitation to our wonderful Discord community, and a free game. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. And a big thank you to Panic for setting all that up. And with that, I think it's time to talk about some games. I think I will start off with a little deck builder called Cobalt Core. So Cobalt Core is a deck builder. It came out a few years ago now. I heard about it at the time. For some reason, it just was one of the ones that I didn't get around to. But it's been on my mind ever since. It might have been like a short game episode or something like that, where I heard about it first. But it's a science fiction deck builder. I'm a fan of deck builders, obviously. I like it if they have a little bit of story in there, why not? It helps to keep the momentum moving along and adds an extra dimension to deck builder gameplay. But I'm also a big fan of just the pure gameplay of deck builders. Like Balatro is a game that has nothing but an aesthetic and then systems heavy gameplay. Then you get games like, Iris and the Giant or Black Jacket, which have a card game but are really a narrative game. Like Inscription is one that I would put in that pile too. And I think that Cobalt Core falls somewhere in the middle. It is a deck builder with a lot of systems where you are piloting a spaceship through the void with a little crew of amnesiac astronauts that have been woken up by a droid and are replaying the same little piece of time again and again and again, which obviously lends itself to run-based gameplay. But the pilots, or the crew of the ship rather, are an interesting bunch. They've got quips, they've got personalities. They chat, they talk about the mystery they found themselves in, and so win or lose, you will always get a few crumbs of narrative, a few crumbs of story for the trouble of your successful or failed run. The card game itself is about winning encounters to beat aliens in battle, but it's an interesting one because your ship is big. It's like a big, fat plane, and when you face off against enemy ships or enemy fleets or whatever, they also fill physically the other side of the board. When it's your turn, you will get a preview of where they're going to shoot next, and you either have to get enough armor onto your ship that the bullets don't cut through, or if you can't do that, which you often can't, you have to move your ship using move cards. You also have attack cards, including, missiles, guns, lasers, all of that kind of stuff, and you have different kinds of effects cards that you'll pick up throughout a run as well. So not only are you playing cards like Slay the Spire or whatever, you're also moving this ship around. You are trying to work the space, trying to not finish in a place where you're going to be vulnerable, whilst not going too far off that you're going to have to move back to land any shots, which will put you at a disadvantage later. So it's a card game, a deck builder with a science fiction story, and an interesting little added element of strategy and tactics in the movement of the ship as well. The reason that I did pick it up now is that it's in the Steam summer sale. And I've had some requests on YouTube. People have been commenting on my videos saying, would you mind doing a Steam summer sale video? Because I guess this is something very common that people do. It's not something that I particularly want to do. I like talking about new games. I like talking about games that are coming out. I like talking about games that I'm playing. But I don't really like putting all of that through the filter of a sale. It feels a bit wrong for me personally to be covering games through that filter. But this is my one tip then, I guess, because I looked down my Steam wish list and there were only a couple of games that were in the sale. This was one of them. I took the dive. And so if you like the sound of it, if you fancy a sci-fi deck builder if you're in the mood for a new roguelike in your rotation, then Cobalt Core is on sale right now. I think I got it for £7, reduced from 20 or something like that. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. I've been dipping in now and then, and I'm looking forward to getting further into it. That's Cobalt Core. The next game I've been spending a bit of time with is Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. It is a large-scale remake of one of the most beloved games in the Assassin's Creed series. And I think it's probably the first Assassin's Creed game that I ever played. You know, I kind of took time off gaming and missed a big chunk of it. And so I'd never played any of the early Assassin's Creeds. And when I actually did get my Switch and come back to gaming after that time away, I went a bit bonkers and bought quite a lot of games. I was just sort of dipping into anything that looked cool, anything that looked interesting, anything that I heard a lot of people talking about, just to see if it was my cup of tea. And, you know, some of it stuck, some of it didn't. I ended up playing a really wide range of games during that period. Everything from Hollow Knight to Hyperlight Drifter, What Became of Edith Finch, Transistor and Bastion, Starlink, Battle for Atlas, and at some point, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I think it released on Switch as part of a collection with the Assassin's Creed Rogue as well. And I played quite a bit of it. I think I played 20 hours or so. Didn't get to the end of the story, but enjoyed my time with it. Enough so that when this new version appeared, I definitely thought maybe now is the time. Maybe I can hop into this new version with all the bells and whistles that's been brought up to date with the Assassin's Creed games that I've played since then. Since then, I have, finished Assassin's Creed Odyssey and then dipped into every Assassin's Creed game that came out since. And so I'm much more familiar with the formula now. And there have been some changes here. It's one of those funny remakes, right? Because, when sometimes things get remastered or remade, you play them and you think, this is just how I remember the first time. Like, there isn't like a huge difference in my memory between Assassin's Creed Black Flag on the Switch and Assassin's Creed Resynced. It's kind of how I remember it. But this is like a classic trick that our memories play on us, because sometimes we will go back and look at the original and think, oh my God, like how could I have mistaken the remaster for the original? It's so different. So I did actually go back to the Switch and I re-downloaded Black Flag and gave it a spin. It's 720p, so it immediately looks very crunchy. The faces are blurry and strange. They're definitely from a past generation. And there are a couple of other little differences too. For example, in a sequence where you swim to shore through the wreckage of a burning ship, in the Switch version, you just swim to shore. In the new version, you are taught how to dive, and you dive beneath some flaming wreckage and witness all of the underwater landscape, the seafloor, all of the plants, all of the fish. And that is signaling to you that there has actually been a significant change there, because in the original Black Flag, you could only swim underwater in very, very specific spots where there was a treasure chest. Now you can swim underwater anywhere, which means that it can be used to, for example, re-attain stealth if you've broken stealth, or just if you want to see what's down there. So swimming has been made into a much bigger part of this remaster in the same way that it is in more modern Assassin's Creed games. The new version also has a dedicated crouch button, which might sound like a crazy thing to say, because Assassin's Creed's all about crouching through plants and that kind of thing. But it turns out that wasn't in the original. Your character would only crouch in specific crouching spots, and it would happen contextually rather than when you chose to do it. And it feels much better to be able to crouch whenever, especially if you've been spotted by a guard. You can crouch down behind a bush and buy yourself some time, so that's a good addition too. The game has zip lines now, a staple of open world games, I would say. In Assassin's Creed, you will often climb up to a tall spot like a church steeple, a mountaintop, a treetop, and then you will survey the area in that iconic synchronized sequence. And usually you just jump off and fall back down to the ground, which is also kind of iconic, this Assassin's Creed swan dive kind of thing. But now there are zip lines that will help you leave a high spot and get across the landscape back to where you need to be. So that's a big addition as well. And there was one big change that I was praying for. One of the reasons that I stopped playing Black Flag the first time around is that it had instant fail stealth missions, which were just a massive pain in the ass, especially given the contextual crouching that I talked about just now. This means that if you are creeping through a plantation of some kind, like following someone. You need to stay in earshot. You can't be seen. There are guards everywhere. Get caught and you'll be sent back to the start of the mission, which is immersion breaking, which is annoying. Like fail states in a game like that, where you're trying to really soak into the experience. It's too gamey for an open world game to have fail states of that kind. And it makes me wonder if after the Star Wars Outlaws fiasco, where it launched with instant fail, pretty difficult stealth missions, and everyone was failing like 10, 20 times and, going up the wall, moaning about it on social media, it certainly impacted the review scores for that game. It makes me wonder if Ubisoft just took that into account and said, look, we don't want another Outlaws here. Let's just dump them. And so now if you get caught during those missions, you can fight your way out. You can run away and try and reattain stealth. And so that's a huge improvement on the original Black Flag. So it's been broadened out. There is also some story content in there as well, I should say. There are extra NPC quests. We get to know some fan favorite characters that were a little underexplored in the original beta. I won't name them because it is kind of cool when you discover who they are. But I sat down to play Black Flag the other day just to try it out. I sat there and played it for 3 entire hours. I played it the next day as well, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I'm really digging it. It's a really cool setting for an Assassin's Creed game. There is also, you get to sail between islands, you get to stop off at desert islands, and they've added more desert islands apparently. So there's more to do when you're sailing around. So, it's a bigger, better, brought up to date version of the game. I will say that if you're expecting Last of Us Part 1 style improvements to very, very detailed facial textures, and performance capture, that is not here. It still feels like a game from a past era in some ways, which did surprise me, but I guess, if we're looking at the state that Ubisoft is in right now, remastering Black Flag is a way to definitely sell some games. So perhaps it's not like a thing that they wanted to spend a huge amount on, but rather a game that they expect to make money for them. If it really sinks its hooks in and I end up finishing it, then I will talk about it again, maybe do a little spoiler cast about the story, or if it feels worth talking about more, I will do that here. But for now, that is my experience with Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. I've also been playing a fair bit of Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection. That is quite a mouthful of a title. I had dipped into Monster Hunter Stories 2, didn't really love it, but this game feels like a really big upgrade on that one. It's a full-fledged JRPG, basically in the Monster Hunter style. You play as the princess of a royal realm in a nation that has been beset by monsters. Monsters are a big part of society. Sometimes they are a threat, sometimes they are a boon in that sort of Game of Thrones dragon way. Some monsters have vanished from the landscape because of, I guess, overpopulation or hunting or that kind of thing. And so an interesting part of this game is actually trying to bring some kinds of monsters back. It starts off in a castle environment where you can access shops, cook, talk to your father, the king, talk to the rangers of which you are a part, get missions, and then go out and do them in the world. Once out in the world, you can fly on your monster, you can gallop across the landscape at high speed, you can catch updrafts that take you high into the air, and that's a really nice feeling actually. It's a really nice feeling to be running along on foot, call your monster, take a flying leap off a cliff, glide down to an updraft, and suddenly find yourself hundreds of meters above the kingdom, just looking down at it all. You can check your map, see where you want to go, and get there pretty quickly. You can set up camps that act as little mobile stations. You cannot build a camp before you've taken care of one big threatening monster in that neighborhood. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game, honestly. It is very systems heavy, and I know that is a reputation that Monster Hunter has, is that it's inscrutable to newcomers. And Monster Hunter Stories is supposed to be like a cut-down version, and it is still somewhat inscrutable at first, because there's just so much going on in the resources that you can collect, the upgrades to equipment, to outfits, all of that good Monster Hunter stuff, where you're fighting monsters, collecting parts, and then using it to upgrade your gear and hunt bigger monsters. There's also an RPG storyline in here. There is a threat coming upon the kingdom. There is another kingdom to deal with. There is a pact with yet another kingdom. There are crazy monsters that are going wild for reasons unknown. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpack. I do like that monster collecting is a part of it too. Like in new areas, you will find these caves that are monster lairs. They're all the same. It's just like a little cave sticking out of the ground, almost comically. You walk in and there's a little clearing, which are all exactly the same, with exactly the same pond on the left and exactly the same small clump of trees on the right. You can steal a monster egg. If you don't like the one you got, you can drop it and take another, looking for a rare egg. Eventually, the monster whose nest it is will come back, and then you have to try and sneak out with the egg. I've never failed to sneak out so far, or been caught, so it's been easy so far, but maybe that will change over time. You can then hatch the monsters, and you have a choice. You can either keep them in your stable, or you can release them back into the wild, and each area of the map has a sort of biosphere readout, where if you keep releasing monsters into that section, then they will repopulate. They will be in the wild, meaning that you can hunt more of them, which is an anti-conservation outcome for a conservation project. But it also means that you can steal more of their eggs and like heal the biosphere. And, you know, it's a weird mix of sort of conservation and extraction. But there it is. It's in the game. I will say that despite the systems being a little bit tangled and odd at first, the game has a lot to like. The art style is very cool. It's like a Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom style, slightly cartoonish, slightly anime style. There are some really wonderful animation sequences. When you cook, you will get like a really, really nice cooking sequence that looks like it could be out of an anime, honestly. And also when you do special moves in combat, where you can build up enough to mount your monster and then do a monster attack. If the other people in your party also build up enough to mount their monsters, you will get dual monster attacks that are like 20-second cinematic sequences that never fail to entertain me. So the presentation in this game is really off the hook. And it is a Capcom game in Capcom's big year. It's perhaps not the heaviest hitter on the roster, not quite at the level of Pragmata or Resident Evil Requiem, but I'm really enjoying the game. I keep coming back to it. It's colorful. It's enjoyable. I play it in short bursts because I tend to get burned out pretty quickly on JRPGs if I binge them. And so I'm playing like, you know, half an hour here, half an hour there, doing a little bit of combat, advancing one story mission, hatching a few eggs, and then returning to it the next day, still fresh and still curious. And I'm curious to see how far I will get with it. I'm guessing that it's quite a long game, but I will keep chipping away at it. And for now, that is Monster Hunter Stories 3, Twisted Reflection, which leaves us with only one more game to talk about. It's the game that I've played the most of the ones that I've talked about so far, and it's a game that I finished almost by accident. I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I always have a game in rotation that is my nighttime game. It's why I played so much Balatro over such a long period of time. It's why I enjoyed Fame or Folly so much recently. I got 40 hours just out of the demo of that game. And it is why I enjoyed Vampire Crawlers. It plugged in neatly into that late night spot where I don't want to be parsing a story. I don't really want to be clicking through dialogue or solving difficult puzzles. I want a appealing, simple, systems-heavy game that will occupy my time whilst I wind down from the day without like fully drawing in, without needing my full attention, basically. What I'm saying is that I like deck builders because they are perfect side screen games. And Vampire Crawlers has become that game. I finished it almost by accident and was surprised to see my hour count when the credits rolled. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about Vampire Crawlers. So Vampire Crawlers, or to give it its full name, Vampire Crawlers The Turbo Wildcard, is by Poncle, the makers of Vampire Survivors. That game obviously won the BAFTA for the best game and took over the world. Everyone was curious about what they would make next, and now we know. It was Vampire Crawlers, it was a deck builder, and it was a really interesting one as well. It came out in April of this year on all of the consoles and Steam. I played it on my ROG Ally via Game Pass, and it was bug-free, ran perfectly. It got a Metacritic 82, so it didn't exactly blow the doors off critically, but that's a very respectable score. Edge gave it an 8, and said it is a rare deck builder that doesn't feel like it's merely aping the giants of the genre. It got a 7 out of 10 from the Sixth Axis, who said, "I don't need games to be life-changing, but I do need a bit more mechanical depth than Vampire Crawlers has to offer." I think those two comments are interesting to put next to each other. One is saying that it's good because it's not just another Slay the Spire or Balatro knockoff, and one is saying that it's just not deep enough. I think there's something to be gleaned from both of those. I do think that it's fresh in that it has this sort of dungeon crawler gameplay where you're walking through a maze and you're working up your builds and you're exploring just a little. It makes it feel different to a Slay the Spire where you are notionally dungeon crawling, but you never really feel like you are. But I do agree that it's somewhat grindy, somewhat shallow in its systems, but that's part of the reason why I like it, so I don't put a big ding on it for that. It is a roguelike, but it is so much of an on-the-sleeve, repetitive game where you do runs and runs and runs, power up, go again, power up, go again. It's not trying to disguise itself as a narrative game. It's not trying to dress itself up as anything else. Balatro is obviously a roguelike to some degree, but I don't think of it as a roguelike. I just think of it as a card game. Vampire Crawlers, to me, for some reason, goes into a separate bucket from what I think of as the roguelike renaissance that we're living through, where there's just so many of them and I feel fatigued. This doesn't go in the same bucket. It goes into a deck builder bucket, and that to me is a different bucket. I don't know if that made any sense. Maybe it did to some of you. I mean, thinking about it more, it's maybe because in roguelikes you get divergent builds that you learn over time. In this game you don't really. Like, you will pull most of the same cards on most of your runs. You will always be pulling a fire wand card, you'll always be pulling a whip card, you'll always be pulling a magic wand and a knife, and you will see them again and again and again, and you will learn pretty quickly that they each have one evolution, or at least as far as I've found, and you know what cards you need to get that evolution, and so it's predictable how a run is going to go. In roguelikes, I feel like they are not predictable, they're unpredictable, and so in some ways this almost feels more arcadey than a roguelike, if that's something you can say. But I should run through the basics. This is a very contemporaneous podcast, as you might have noticed. I don't have deep notes today. I'm just kind of talking about the games for the most part. But Vampire Crawlers, you start in a small town. You don't get to walk around or anything. If you look left, there is a pub. If you look behind you, there is a museum. If you look right, there is a magician's tent. And a few more will open up throughout your playtime. If you go into each of these are basically your power-up spots. In one of them, you can see all of the crawlers that you found. These are like auxiliary cards that can help you out mid-run. One of them is a blacksmith, and you can see all of your weapons cards, which you can power up using currency that you win mid-round. One of them is kind of a fortune teller kind of tent where you can get the most powerful boons that will really change the game to some degree. You unlock all of those over time. And when you're all ready, you've chosen your character, you've spent all of your money, you've done everything you want to do, you can go out on a run. There's an overworld map with like a bridge in each biome. Each biome has 3 or 4 spots that you can go into and run a dungeon. As you complete them, you will start to power up and take on the next one, unlock the next one. So it has a linear progression to it. And then each area has a bridge that is a pretty hard level. It's just a straight up gauntlet of enemies that you have to power your way through. If you can do it, then you will open up the next area, which gives you some new enemies, new places to try and fight, etc. If you don't, you kind of just have to go back to the dungeons that you've done previously and try and grind it out, get some more currency, get stronger, and go again. So it's a game that has a somewhat grindy structure, and I think that is what put me off it at first. But when I came back to it for a second run, I really just settled into the groove. It was the right kind of grind for me. Like I said, it's a game that you can play with one eye on the screen, and it really, really worked for me. The dungeons themselves have a on-the-grid movement to them, so you can use WASD or a D-pad, walk forward, turn left or right, like the cabin in Inscription, or I guess more to the point, some of the earliest RPGs, like Dungeon Master and Eye of the Beholder, the very, very first RPGs where you're like looking at a tiny little screen that shows a corridor. If you push forward, you go forward 1 square. So that's the movement that we're dealing with. And you go around a little maze. If you walk up to an enemy, then you will fight a bunch of enemies, basically. They come in ranks. At first, it's just, 3 skeletons. You can play your card. You can play a knife and a whip that will take their health down. You can play a shield, which means you'll block damage on their turn. You will pull more cards, play more cards, and then at the end you get money and you get to choose a new card to go into your deck. And so before long, you've graduated from whips and knives to fire spells and cleavers and rows of axes that you can throw. All of the weapons in the game are recognizable from Vampire Survivors, and all of the crawlers are too. They're like characters that you will have seen before in that game. So you will find yourself using garlic, and you will find yourself using, all of the classic weapons from Vampire Survivors and a few more as well. So if you enjoyed that about Vampire Survivors, it's like that whole vibe repurposed into a roguelike deck builder. And so in that sense, you could say that it is a follow-up or an indirect sequel or just a development of the Vampire Survivors vibe. And that includes that some of the enemies that you fight are basically like a big gang of asset store monsters that don't really belong together. Like, there might be like a robot and an animal and a zombie and a weird little monk with knives, and you're like, how do you guys know each other? Like, who are you working for? What are we doing here? But it really is best not to ask those questions, I suppose. The asset store vibe of Vampire Survivors is part of its charm, and that has been preserved here. Each dungeon has various floors, and you can choose to either clear them out or to try and find your way to the floor boss. If you clear it out, you get more and more and more currency, you get more and more and more cards. If you get too many cards, it can dilute your deck, so maybe sometimes you want to swerve enemies just to preserve your deck and not have to pull a card. But if you're a little hard up, it really is best to search every floor. There are breakable things that will give you randomly drawn objects, whether it happens to be a card that you can use temporarily or a turkey, which will raise your health, and they really can be game-changing. So you can find yourself like scavenging out every single corner of every single floor in a dungeon because you're clinging on by the skin of your teeth. Later on, when you're more powerful, you will just walk through the first few floors of the dungeon. But the bosses do ramp it up, You will get bosses that have different functions, like clocks that tick down every time you play a card, which immediately changes your strategy. Most strategies in this game revolve around finding a way to play as many cards as possible. For example, by giving yourself more energy, having a card that pulls more cards into your hand. So you can end up playing like 20, 30 cards before your enemy even gets to play a turn. But then if suddenly your enemy is punishing you every time you play 5, you have to find yourself being more selective and rethinking your whole strategy. So the bosses are cool. But as for that criticism from the 6-axis about mechanical depth, I will say that most of the bosses are basically kind of the same. Like, that countdown thing I talked about is the main boss mechanic. It might have been interesting if there were, elementals or something. I guess they decided to keep it simple. You don't have to really create a build that will take out a boss. You're just trying to get a powerful build that will take out any boss. But maybe that simplicity is part of what makes the game appealing to me, and more complexity might have just bogged it down. What's here is good, and not every game has to be endlessly complex. And not every game has to be endless. Balatro I played hundreds of hours of, Slay the Spire I played about 100. In this game, it's linear, and once you've unlocked all of the levels and beaten all of the bosses, you get a little final boss and an end sequence, and that's your lot. And I really liked that about it. It's the reason that I praised games like Slots and Daggers, which was a very, very concise 10-hour roguelike where you crack it, you finish it, and then you're done. It doesn't have endless replayability. Neither does this game. Once I saw credits, I was like, I think I'm done. I could have played a little longer just to get the platinum or whatever that is on Xbox, like the full gamer score. But honestly, I was done. I played it. I had fun. I got to the end. I saw where it goes. I got all of the weapons and saw all of the enemies. And maybe there are secrets to uncover. Maybe there will be DLC. It's a very DLCable game, I would say. You could quite easily tack on a few new areas. But I was very satisfied with the experience. It was tight, concise, well put together, addictive, grindy, and simple in a way that some people will quote as a criticism, but I would put in the positive column. So I had a really good time with it, and that's my review of Vampire Crawlers. So there we have it, a bit of a grab bag episode this week. We talked about Cobalt Core, we talked about Black Flag Resynced, Monster Hunter Stories 3 and Vampire Crawlers. We did also talk about, of course, the Panic giveaway, so if you would like to support this podcast and get a game code for doing so, as well as the warm glow of knowing that you're supporting me, then join on Patreon. You can get a code for Despelote, Blippo Plus or Time Flies. I have 10 of each. When they're gone, they're gone. I expect that they won't fly off the shelves, people trickle in as patrons rather than charge in droves. But they will be gone soon enough, so if you want one, then hop on in. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. You do also get to join our Discord, which is the nicest place on the internet to talk about games. I really love it. We had a great long conversation in there today about physical media that turned into a conversation about digital adoption throughout culture and the upsides and downsides of that and what physical objects mean to us. There's like 10 people come in and we talked for an hour. It was absolutely fantastic, and you are welcome to come and join us. Please do so, patreon.com/gaminginthewild. There are some other tiers as well on the Patreon. There is a boss tier and a benefactor tier. Both of those will get you a thank you on every single podcast and video. So special thanks to KingChamp, SusannaMaria, Drellesh, Rhyistic Studies, Nate, Noah, Jeremy, and Andrew. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with a new podcast. There is something every week on the YouTube channel, so check that out. Link in the show notes. And with that, take care of yourselves and each other, and bye-bye for now.